Hi, my name is Gabriel. In this episode of Madhouse, we have a chat with Peter, the founder and creative director of Admire, a production company based in Kampala. So let's jump right into the madness. Enjoy. So I just thought we'd just talk about what is Admire. Because a lot of people seem to not know what Admire is. Like, some people confuse it an agency, is it a design house, is it a boutique house? And I was like, since we're talking to Peter, let's get that out of the air and find out what is Admire like.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Admire is a production house
Okay.
that has been around for 10 years now.
Okay.
We make 10 years in March 2019.
Okay.
And the truth is, even as a production house, we offer solutions that sometimes you could, should I say, they're more like they fall in the agency category.
Okay.
So there are some clients who approach us, pretty much as an agency.
Okay.
And we pride ourselves, of course, in, being problem solvers. So we always, I think most of our, our energy is going to thinking,
Okay.
as opposed to, hey, sit down on a computer, push pixels, throw color here and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We always question everything, that we do in terms of design, in terms of communication, and I guess I don't know if that.
Yeah, I think that clears it because a lot of people are like, "Hey, Gav, this Admire thing, like, what they do?" I'm like, "Man, let me go and find out for you." Anyway, so the next thing I'm very interested in is like history. Like, okay, may I know a little bit about it? But like, I just need, like, for people who can't listen to this podcast, just need to understand like where Admire is from, like.
True.
The inspiration with Admire, because some people are like, wait, I just see like an Autodesk name in there, like how did it all come in there? There? But it's like, just tell us how it all began 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And like,
So I would say Admire was a mistake, a good mistake that happened. I was working somewhere, actually at Watoto, along with my colleague Arthur, and at some point, you know how God shakes your nest, and you're like, you need to get out there and do something.
True.
So when I left my job at Watoto, I actually did take around some, application forms. I think I took my application to NTV and a couple of other places. I applied to some international, places. But anyway, to cut the long story short, one of my friends told me, like, why don't you start a company?
Yeah.
And I didn't think I had it in me. So in my mind, Admire was just something we were starting. Okay, for me, it was like, let me do this while I wait for, Joyce Meyer Ministries to get back to me. Because I applied, to all those international places, Hillsong.
Okay.
And I was like, why don't I do this in the meantime as I wait for my job application to be, granted?
Yeah.
But even as I was doing it, like the very first year, it was more or less like, we love this and we can do this.
Sure.
And maybe we can start a business. But it wasn't like, in 5 years we want to become this, in 10 years we see ourselves as this. And I think that helped us because we grew organically, if you may say that. It started on a dining table. And, I used to work while watching my housemates, watch TV, do things. So it was a very, very, should I say, it was unexpected, the way Admire came together. But what I will tell you is that we were frustrated designers at heart. We saw the way things were happening in our country, and we felt we could change that. So it's like all the adverts looked the same. They had the same voiceovers. Nothing was pushing the boundary, So when we came into the industry, we were like, I think we can do these things that the South Africans are doing and the Kenyans are doing and the Americans are doing, like this whole VFX thing, creating something from nothing and making it seem like it actually exists in the real world,
Sure.
So that's really, how we started. And I think because we were cut out, or should I say, we decided from the get-go to do things differently. We always had clients, we always had, there was never a time where we felt like, oh, 3 months have passed by and we don't have any business. It was always like, those guys do weird stuff, let's try them, let's try them out.
Let's try the weirdness.
And we kept on having repeat clients. And I would say, for the audience out there, I also don't want to, just paint the rosy side of things.
Yeah, sure.
I would say we suffered a bit in terms of business because we didn't have the business acumen and, understanding how businesses work.
Yeah.
I remember there was a time, by then it was called Orange.
Okay.
They were like, you guys, you need to be, VAT subscribed, you need to be this if you're to get more business from us. And we're like, hey, we've been around for 1.5 years and we're not, VAT registered. But yeah, a lot of businesses go through that. You start a business and you don't put your documents in order, you don't remit your taxes or things like that. And it later on comes to bite you. So we quickly had to, start attending business conferences, just to understand the business side of things. Yes, you have a hobby. Yes, you love your art, and maybe you have support from family and friends. They think, oh, this is dope. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you need to understand, if you want this thing to be the machine or the vehicle that puts food on the table, there are other things that you cannot disregard, Yeah. So Admire is a company that actually has structures. We have a business director, we have a creative director, we have finance people or things like that. And I guess that's why people always, look at us as an agency of some sort, because we try to be as structured and... I don't know if I can add any more to that.
I think that's very interesting that you mentioned about growth, because it seems like a lot of artists or creatives or people don't seem to have the sort of growth and then build into structures business.
True.
And this kind of still stick into a very hippie kind of structure of things.
True.
Maybe that's why they kind of always stay where they are, and it never seems to be a thing, which is very interesting, which brings back to this whole idea of the state of the industry, which kind of feels like everyone likes the art, but it kind of avoids the business acumen of things and just understanding how to grow.
Yeah.
Which I think you guys have done really well, understanding how to grow and stay in a space which is kind of interesting. So I wanted to understand because this is also about problem solving. Has that been in terms of also your history? How has it been in terms of also creative? How has that also helped in terms? Has that how on the creative side? Because also in terms of as the business grows, also the creative has to get sharper and better. So have they been very interesting?
So I guess when it comes to creative, one of the things about creative is that it requires time. It's like a kid growing up. You start somewhere, and sometimes people put so much pressure on themselves, and they don't want to put work out because they feel it's not creative enough, and they forget that you have to start somewhere. You have to put out some work that looks a bit shady, for you to get to that point where people now start to notice you and say, oh, wow, you did this, And I guess people also always trust, should I say, people who understand the process. Yeah. And for you to understand the process, it comes from doing it over and over again. You make mistakes and then you learn that, okay, you know what, the best way for me to do a VFX job is to ensure I start with storyboards. Otherwise, I'm going to serve my client this thing, and then they'll say, no, I wanted the thing to flip like this. Yeah. And then you have to start all the way. That's money, that's time, and things like that. So we try as much as we can to inform and educate our clients, look, there's a process, and if we were to do your work, this is how it will go. But going back to the question that you asked me, how has the creative has it grown for us vis-a-vis the business? I would say it has grown to a place where we have, should I say, certain things that we look at and we're like, okay, when we just started out, I don't think we could do that.
Yeah.
But now we can, because we have like certain company, should I say, traditions. And every employee in Admire has what you call a personal project, And from those personal projects, you are free to fly, you are free to do anything, you're free to make mistakes. And, every once a month we meet as a team and say, okay, what have you created, on a personal basis? And then your colleagues critique it, and it's very ruthless. Like, guys bash your work in front of you and they're like, what were you thinking? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But the beauty about it is that, the more you go back and then work on those things that they told you, it makes your work better. Yeah, true. And there have been things that have come out of Admire that started as personal projects, I always believe, that if you can be given the liberty, to do something on a white canvas, because there are also challenges when you are, let's say, a production house or an agency, in that you're sometimes boxed into a certain brand, if you're working for a client and their colors are blue, you can't use red no matter how much you want it, maybe because their competitors are red and things like that. So you're always boxed. True. But with these personal projects, you are allowed to be anything you can be, and a lot of abstract stuff comes from there, and we've seen ourselves actually infusing some of our personal projects into client work, and that has been amazing for us.
Yeah, that's cool. You just said something about making mistakes, and this is very interesting because whenever we talk about Admire, in outside circles, it seems like you guys are like Jesus, you never make mistakes. And I thought this would be an opportunity to just if you have the time to share a story where it's you made a mistake creatively, and you guys figured out how to solve it, because it always seems like nothing goes wrong at Admire. And I'm I'm not sure. I think things go wrong. And
Yeah. Oh, wow. Let me see. Now you've put me in a place of sharing deep company secrets. But, I understand. If I could pick one, I would say, well, I'm just trying to find out which one is the best to share. But I would say one of the mistakes I think we made sometime is I don't even know how to say this, but okay. I'll share this one. I'm struggling whether to share it or not to share it, but okay. If you allow me to share a mistake that turned out to be, should I say, a great thing?
Yeah, great thing, or a great lesson for the team and the
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I have a very good one. There was a time we had worked on our website and we wanted to launch it. Yeah. And we sat down and had a brainstorm and we're like, how do we launch this website, and things like that. So to us, it was a big deal because we had put in a lot of time in the design. You know how a lot of people like to take shortcuts. They just buy templates and then infuse their information in there. But we had built a custom, website from the ground up, and we were really proud about it. So one of us hatched this idea. We said, why don't we say we are launching an IPO? And it wasn't true. Yeah. But it was just like a way of communicating something, and we just changed the words IPO to mean improved online portfolio, something like that, portfolio online, something like that. Yeah. And we went ahead with the idea. So when we told the whole world, we were contacted by people from Nigeria, we were contacted by news companies from Kenya. Everybody was excited that there was this young company which was just 5 years old in Africa, doing an IPO. And we hadn't even met any of the banks or we were just playing, So it turned out bigger than we expected it to be, to a point that we even had bankers visiting Admire to say, who is handling your IPO? We want to handle it, And we kept on brushing them off. We were like, it's top secret, So to cut the long story short, on the day, everybody was excited, our friends and family. Now, we kept it an internal secret that we didn't even tell our family. Yeah. They were all excited. I guess people had even saved some money. I remember there was a time I was on the golf course and some guy called me and he was like, I'm from News 24 and I want to cover this story. I want to fly over. I was like, oh God, this is now becoming really scary, Yeah. But anyway, to cut the long story short, we launched our website. It was the craziest thing. Some people laughed about it. Some people were so pissed about it. And to tell you the extent it went, CMA, which is like the one that handles all IPOs and anything regarding that, called us for a board meeting. Like we went and sat with their board and they were like, do you guys realize that you made a crazy mistake? Like you shook the whole market. Like people were calling us left, right and center and saying, do you know about this? Like everybody was wondering. And they told us, you could even have gone to jail, things like that. But they understood we were young and they told us, they commended us for our crazy communication, and they were like, they wish they could hire us to kind of market, other IPOs that are happening in the country, because that was like unconventional. No one had ever done that, So yeah, it was a big mistake, but we learned from it and I'm glad it turned out.
Well, yeah. Now we all know where the website came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing. Wanted to find out, where does Admire come from? That's one thing you've not shared yet, and yet I know where it's coming from, but I just thought people should know where Admire comes from.
Yeah, so the word Admire actually was hashed from a very simple, the funny thing about what we do is that sometimes it's really the simple things that kind of actually turn out to be the right things, because sometimes we overthink things. And when we were starting the company, we decided, me and Robert and Arthur were like, okay, let's start this company and blah blah blah. And then we're like, come up with a name. So I was tasked to come up with a name, and I thought long and hard. I threw like 30 names at them, and they were like, And then I said, okay, you know what, let's put this name thing aside. Let's just write the softwares that we need for the company. Now, of course, as 3D animators, and we were like crazy about Maya, the software called Maya. And at that time, it cost, I think, $7,000 just for a license. So while I was writing the list, I put on, Final Cut Pro, blah, 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 other softwares that cost like $100, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, should I add Maya to this list? But it's so expensive, but we need it, I struggle. I was like, add Maya. So then I just got that light bulb moment. Then I called my friends. I was like, guess what we should call our company? Admire. He asked me why. Because blah, blah, blah. I was thinking it should be Admire to our softwares, that list that you told me to write. I was like, okay. So he asked me, how would you write it? Would you write it like Admire, as in to admire something? Or I said, no, we will write it Admire, and some people will read it. And it turned out to be that in a very short period of time, our work was really admired all over the country, and we are really proud of that.
That's great. That's great. So the last phase of this podcast, which is very interesting, is just more about me asking you more, where do you think, like, future things, like, where's Admire going, but also state of, like, the space, like, do you think, where do you think it's going in terms of professionalism and creative? Like, do you think, because this thing, some people are asking me, like, hey, there's the whole company thing and there's the whole freelance thing.
Yeah.
And like, seeing how things are going, do you think both can coexist, or one is going to disrupt the other in a way or the other? Because some people are saying, hey, Admire wins because it's a company, and I'm like, maybe no, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And so I said, let me ask Peter, since he's the guy here, on what he thinks his thoughts are of the space and the future of Admire and how things are going.
So I'll be very honest with you. Like, there are some jobs that can be done, as freelance work, and there are some jobs that can't be done as freelance work. They can only be done as a company.
Yeah.
And the beauty about having a company is that you have a number of heads that are making certain decisions. A lot of artists focus only on the craft, like we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
And they forget the finance bit, they forget the operations, they forget production, and those processes are very key for, like, should I say, certain works to come to fruition.
Yeah.
And I'll be very honest with you. Like, I always like to encourage people to be what they feel they want to be. Like, if you want to be a freelancer or if you want to start a company, just know that they all have like certain pros and cons. Yeah. It will cost you a lot more to run as a company because, hey, like at the end of the month, I'm thinking, we need salaries, we need to pay, this and stuff. And freelancers don't think about that.
Sure.
But if I was to talk about it from the point of view of like now the actual work.
Yes.
The thing about companies is that when you sit like 10 people and challenge a piece of work, it always turns out to be like the work, like what I've realized about Admire's work is that it's never the same, it's always different. It's always changing. As a company, of course, people come and go, and we pride ourselves in many projects that we've done, one that I can pick out is Katoto, when Musinguzi was with us, and you look at certain pieces of work and you're like, hey, that could never have been possible, if we want like these 10 group of people like thinking in a certain direction and saying this is what we want to achieve, and let's do everything that we can, let's support each other, and if you're going to animate, maybe someone else will do the cell shading, another person will do the script writing and the voicing, and another person will just market the work. All those things are very key to our industry. So that's my take on things.
Okay, cool. So the last thing is, I'm just going to ask you randomly, just basically just give people listening like a very, I don't know if I would say a very creative piece of advice to take for life. Like, what does Peter think people should creatively take in life? I don't know, like something small. Just to,
like a month of sorts of.
Yeah.
Let me see. Okay, so. One of the things that I actually have learned during my time as an artist is that there is so much you can derive from doing things that are not necessarily art. What am I saying? Like, challenge yourself to go out there and do something that you would not necessarily often do, and if I can pick out just a few examples, I think for me, there are times when I'm seated on my desk and I just have this brain jam, and then I will go maybe somewhere and then just look at the traffic, or I will say, let me just go and I don't know, swim, do something irregular, Wow. And at Admire, we have something called Open Day. And Open Day is where each individual has a day in a month. So if Feb is mine, March will be Pasco's, May will be Sylvia's. And on your Open Day, you have a full day to give your other colleagues anything that you want them to do. You even have the liberty to say, guys, on my Open Day, let's all stay home and sleep. It's up to you. But what I've realized is that we've done all sorts of weird things. I would say, imagine something like, let's go and visit a sugarcane factory. And then you talk to these guys who work in the sugarcane factory and blah, 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 and they tell you how they solve problems. I'm telling you, you'll come back to work the next day, and for some reason, it will just be magical. You will know how to solve something that is design related, yet you are talking to a guy who works in a sugarcane factory. So I don't know if I can put it in certain words, but if I was to put it in one sentence, I would say do things that you don't normally necessarily do, do things that are out of the box for you. And in that, you will better your craft, as opposed to when you only entirely focus on your craft and then you become this nerd who can't, I don't know, sell anything.
Sell anything or solve anything.
True.
Cool. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much.
Do I also get to ask a question
sure.
to my interview?
You can ask us a few questions. The Creative Asylum. You can ask us
a few questions. Okay. So, of course, I've heard about the Creative Asylum. I've seen what you guys have done, and I must say I really commend you guys to stretch yourselves and say, okay, you're going to talk to artists, because sometimes we as artists, we like to be in our own cocoons. We never talk, or we feel like if we talk, we're sharing our secrets, and then people are going to, take our thrones or whatever it is. But as the Creative Asylum, and having interviewed a number of artists in the country, what do you think is lacking in our industry to make us move to the next level where, if I may give an example of, you see how the comics of Marvel have been there since back then, and they just keep, And we also have our own African stories, and I'm sure you've talked to the Creatures, you've talked to Musinguzi, you've talked to maybe Lukman. I don't know. There's so many people out there, actually. There's so many young. So what can we do as industry leaders to kind of push us to that next level where we now have because content is now a big thing. And we have to, I don't know, like, of course, I will say this openly, government is not doing their best to support artists. If they were, by now there would be a movie about Chintu and Nambi, but they're not. And I can say that openly. So what can we do as us? And I know, like, a lot of people will even attack Admire and say, oh, no, Admire is not friendly. You know what? But you who has talked to all of us, like, what would you say?
I mean, like, for me, I think, representing the asylum and what we have just been paying attention and noticing in the space, I think, like, there may be two things, but, like, it's weird. I think, like, one, I think artists need to start being very collaborative and open with each other. Sometimes there seems to be very, like, top secret things among each other. Like, the Creatures don't want to talk to the Lukmans, the Lukmans don't talk to the Admans. It's like, guys, like, and sometimes also, sometimes, I think, in terms of the collaboration, sometimes I always tell people, I make a joke and I always say, guys, whatever you guys are thinking are secrets are not secrets. Because, like, I was like, this is a joke. I was like, Lukman, Lukman, fancy renders are not hard to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole YouTube channel on rendering. You know what I mean? So it can't be that tricky to pull off. So I think collaboration is one thing. But also another thing, I think maybe this is a thing for me. I think that thing you said of the business sense of things, I kind of feel like so many, like, artists we have engaged with kind of are stuck in the sort of artist thing of stuff, whether it's a comic book artist or whatever. They always seem to be like, hey, check my cool comic book art, or check my cool animation, or check my stuff. And yet me, I'm saying, hey guys, we need to figure out how to
put this out there
but market it in a way that sort of returns some sort of money. Because I have a friend who always says that if any creative guys solve that problem, especially not for like client work, but like, let's say, like you're saying a Chintu Nambi film, or if someone solved that problem, it's easy to convince someone with a lot of money that, hey, give me 100 million, because he can see that you can make 100 million, 200 million. And I think it's just two things: collaboration and sort of having a more market business sense of saying, okay, how do we sell this? But I think that all comes down to, like, people first willing to talk to each other, and people not sort of
because I've always seen these credits on movies, and man, like, you find like 10 studios are working on a film, you know. So just like you said, I think we need to understand that we're not competing against each other. Really.
Like, I mean, and even if you're competing, because I mean, it's like, I mean, it's okay to have some competition among you, sharpen each other. I mean, like, if I say, oh, that's what the Admans did, let me just show them, and then you say, go do something, then the Admans are like, oh, let me go show that. That's great. But, like, as you're saying, like, compete and not hate.
So for me, I'll put it out there. Like, I've always looked forward to working with the Creatures. I love working with Musinguzi. He's an amazing guy. You know, Lukman, I've worked with Lukman before and things like that. And I'll put it out there. Like, we need to figure out how to either discover our
space. Also, I mean,
our
like,
John Lee.
Yes, and
what's
also
his name? The guy who did the Marvel books.
Stanley.
Stanley. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe that's what we need to discover. But I mean, you look at the amount of revenues that are coming from basic stories, art stories, you know, and it's incredible. So, what are we doing with our stuff?
I don't know.
You know,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, I think we need to figure out our own rules. Also, that's another thing. Asylum. We notice everyone has like a business model that's very American.
Yeah.
And we're like, guys, relax. You're not in America. Like, you
Yeah.
don't think that business model is going to work the same way as you think it is going to work. So, yeah, I guess it's just openly having these discussions over time, and I think that's why Asylum exists. Just sort of say, guys, let's round table this and bash heads and figure out how to get it there.
True.
Yeah, but that's it. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you too.
Yeah.
Gilbert. Oh,
Gabriel.
Sorry.
Everyone calls me Gilbert. You guys have never stopped. Ever since,
thank you so much.
Cool, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.